Welcome back. How's everybody doing today? Hope you guys had a good week. My name is Jamie. You guys know me as Mystic Mac DFS over in the Reddit communities. I hope you guys had a good week 2 of the XFL. Just like last week, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to go over probably two to three quarterbacks. We're going to go over three quarterbacks today that I really have a decent amount of interest in at this point in the week. It is only Wednesday, so it is a little early. It's going to develop a little bit throughout the week, but we'll touch a little more in depth on like a final look when I do that final thoughts video on Friday. However, this is going to give us a good idea of kind of where I'm at least in this part of the week. It's going to be, like I said, a 10 to 15 minute video is what we're going to generally try to hit for. I'm going to go just kind of in depth, but like I said, only on three guys. That way it doesn't take too much of your time. No real need to go in depth onto every single quarterback at this point of the week. Just want to give you guys some of my early interest and just kind of go over a few advanced metrics. Some of them happen in week 1, some of them happen in week 2, and just kind of see now after a couple weeks of data where we're sitting, kind of what we like and what we don't like. So let's go ahead and let's dive into that. We're going to start here with Cardale Jones. Okay? Cardale Jones, he's the guy, if you've been watching this video for the last couple of weeks, you should be familiar with because I have played him. He is, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the entire league, just from a raw performance standpoint, not a fantasy standpoint. And the metrics have shown that. He's been extremely efficient. He's had an adjusted completion percentage of 80%. He is only averaging 2 touchdowns per game, but that's just because they're not. It's just not being needed for him to throw. He's only throwing the ball about 32 times a game. So at this point, it just hasn't been needed for him to, throw the ball 50 times, 45 times a game, and to really air it out and to really get that fantasy upside that we need. However, this week he is going to be a guy I'm going to have some interest in, just like last week. And most weeks, this team does have the highest team total with 26 points. Just like last week, I want to mention, keep an eye on these Vegas odds, the odds in the game totals. These are going to be changing throughout the week constantly, as we can see now, just from these 4 teams. All 4 of these teams have a game total of 44. No one has a game total over 45 at this point in the week. As we know, week 1, we had totals over 50. So it's starting to catch on a little bit now that we get a little more data that these games aren't going to be near as high scoring. One, because of the lack of efficiency from the quarterbacks, and also from the coaches as well. The head coaches have been really disappointing, I'd say. There's been a few of them that have been pretty good. I think Bob Stoops has been pretty good. Obviously, June Jones has been pretty good. But outside of that, overall, it's been pretty disappointing. I know, like, Mark Trestman has been a disappointment for me. Pep Hamilton is still a guy I'm a little disappointed in because he does want to run the ball. This team is a team that does want to run the ball a lot. So I think when we're looking at Cardale Jones, that does need to be factored in, especially because he is the highest priced quarterback. But what I do like about him is that he does have the most time to throw in the league. He has over 3 seconds, the only player to have over 3 seconds to throw. So his offensive line is holding up. I'm not too fearful of this Los Angeles Wildcats team. I think this is going to be an inferior team all year. They do have a good quarterback, but as far as their defense goes, last week I don't care what happened last week. That they're not the DC Defenders, and DC has a pretty elite offense. I think that they're going to be able to have their way. And according to PFF, LA does have the 3rd worst pass rush. And so when we add that up with Cardale already having the longest time to throw, I do think that Cardale is going to be able to kind of do what he wants in this. What we do really like about Cardale Jones is that he's been super efficient when when throwing the ball deep. So if you kind of would take a look at his deep passes that aren't on this sheet, obviously here, because these are from PFF. But he has thrown 12 deep passes, but he's converted 8 of them. He has an adjusted deep completion percentage of 83%. And 19% of his passes are being targeted down deep, which is okay. It's, a little below average in the league, but it's not terrible by any stretch of the imagination. Especially when we look at guys like Jordan Ta'amu, who's only throwing deep about 4% of the time. 18% isn't bad, but like I said, that is about 5th in the league at this point. And we'll touch base on a couple others who are throwing the ball deep at a pretty high clip. But he's also averaging 7.7 yards per attempt. So I think that's going to be something we're also going to have a lot of interest in. But the thing I like the most about Cardale Jones, and that's going to be that the DC is running a play action on 30% of their pass plays. So he has 21 dropbacks and 12 completions during that, and he's averaging 8.1 yards per attempt. Um, like I mentioned last week, teams that are going to be doing play action are just going to be much more efficient offenses, and offenses that we're going to want to take advantage of, regardless of if the run game's working or not. It's just been shown that offenses are going to be much more efficient when we're able to run the play action pass, and that this team runs it at a high clip, the highest clip in the league. No other team runs it at more than 25%. I'm going to have a lot of interest in Cardale Jones. And when we get to the wide receivers later on this evening or tomorrow, we'll touch base on a couple of wide receivers I really like from there. Next, we're going to go Landry Jones. Before I go any deeper, I just want to mention that we can see here that a lot of these are all blacked out on all of these guys. This is because I do, like I mentioned last week, have exclusive content over at my Patreon, which is Patreon.com/Mystic Mac DFS, MYSTIC MAC DFS. And over there, I have a lot of player dashboards, a lot of data sets, head-to-head matchup sheets, similar to the one you're looking at here. Obviously, as running back, wide receiver, that would go on through in the later days as well. But I have tiers, I have articles, I go over usage pods, live streams, a bunch of good stuff over there. Feel free to check that out. If not, no worries at all. I'm going to be posting here multiple times throughout the week as well. So just go ahead and give this video a like. Subscribe to the channel, and that would really mean a lot to me as well. But let's go on Landry Jones. What we like about Landry Jones, they hit 40 pass attempts in his first game in the XFL last week. He completed 70% of those passes, and he was the first quarterback to throw for 300 yards, and that was his first game. He really struggled on some of his deep passes, especially early on, but you can tell he was really rusty. This was a guy that got hurt on the opening day of practice, so he hasn't had a lot of time to get familiar with the offense and really get in that game shape. And so I think, and as we kind of saw as the game kind of progressed, he started to be able to get a rhythm, and I think he's going to be able to get more of a rhythm this week as well, as he starts to just to kind of familiarize himself with the offense and with the receivers. And I think him and Jeff Badette's going to be a really good combination. We saw how Don Parham did, the tight end that really played in the slot most of the time. He's not a real tight end. But I think Landry Jones is going to be a guy that we're going to want to target, especially since Dallas is going to be throwing the ball just as much as anybody, if not the most in the league as they are right now. They're going to be throwing the ball 80% of the time on early downs, on first and second down, when we get a real good indicator of what these teams are trying to do. They're throwing a pass on 83% of the time. So, I mean, just knowing that this team is going to be throwing the ball, they're going to be running a lot of plays because they're playing in this up-tempo, no-huddle offense. And before the season, Bob Stoops mentioned he wanted to run 80 plays. So I'm just kind of interested in these type of guys. You know, we saw here that Seattle has a decent defense so far. We really, at this point, as far as like team offenses and team defense numbers, it's hard to really give a good indicator just based off of numbers on what teams do, because it's so based off of who they played and what that offense, done. I mean, you can look at teams like St. Louis and they would show like they have been super elite versus tight ends, but they played like Houston and teams that haven't really, in Dallas, teams that really didn't employ a tight end, like Dallas obviously has tight ends, but most of the guys like Sean Price and Donald Parham have been playing in the slot. So really just be careful when you do look at some of these numbers over here. Mostly, I do think most important are, for the first couple of weeks, are going to be each individual numbers. And as we start to get, through next week, probably after 4 weeks for sure of data, then we can really start to look at that team data to really get a good idea of what these teams are. But after 2 weeks, it's really going to be just based off of the opponent that they faced in the skill set that they kind of hone. So like I said, Landry Jones is going to be a guy that we're wanting to throw the ball a ton. He did throw 6 deep attempts. Like I said, he was pretty inefficient with those. He only completed 1 pass, but like I said, he's rusty. I think over time that he's going to be able to get a little bit more rhythm with an offense. That's not something I'm going to be too concerned about. But he did have a 67% completion rate under pressure, which is going to be something also going to be a good factor because Seattle has been the top pass rush according to PFF so far this season. And lastly, we're going to stick in that same game. So Brandon Silvers, at this point of the week, I have a little interest in him, and the reason I do is because like I said, Dallas is going to be a very pass-heavy team. He is very cheap at 7,500, and one thing I think a lot of people are going to see is that he only threw the ball 28 and a half times, as we can see here. And he has a pretty poor completion percentage of 49%. There's no way around it. He's been the worst quarterback in the league so far. Out of all the guys who has been starting, he's just been really inefficient. He's only averaging 5.4 yards per attempt. But like I said, he's really cheap. And a reason that I do like him is that he does throw deep passes at a pretty high clip. So he throws a deep pass on 23% of his dropbacks, which is the highest clip out of all quarterbacks in the league. Obviously, he's been very inefficient in those. He has 13 deep attempts and only completed 2 of them. But like I said, he is throwing it at a deep clip. Keenan Reynolds, we saw, got hit with one of those last week. He might be a guy we like again. He's a guy that I mentioned out of my 3 wide receivers last week in these videos. But another reason I like Brandon Silvers is their play action percentage. The same reason we like Cardell Jones was because their team was running play action at 30% clip. Well, Seattle's running play action at 23% clip. Obviously, Brandon Silvers hasn't been very efficient. With those, he's only averaging 1.3 yards per attempt, which is just absolutely terrible. But I think it is important to note that it is still early, and these are still positive signs to see, especially for a guy that's only going to be 7.5K, probably going to be playing from behind, and is likely going to need to be throwing the ball a little bit more than 28 times. Likely have to play kind of similar to week 1, when they kind of had to chuck the ball a little bit more. So that's kind of what I'm leaning right now. I think that his upside is there. We'll touch more base on this when it comes to Friday when I go on that final look video to see where he kind of lands. But right now, he is one of the 3 quarterbacks that I'm kind of leaning on. This week is an interesting week because I do think I think Josh Johnson's going to be an interesting play, although DC's defense is stout. Jordan Ta'amu is obviously always going to be an in play. He's been the best quarterback fantasy-wise in the year. Passing, running, the guy can do it all. But his price obviously it went up a good amount. So there will be things that we'll kind of weigh over on Friday as well. But it's going to give you an idea of the 3 guys I'm kind of looking at so far early in the week. I hope you guys found this video useful. If you guys have any questions, feel free to post in the comments. Hit me up on Reddit. Follow me on Twitter at Jamie, JAYME, ORTH. And like I said, if you guys want to just subscribe to this video, I appreciate that. I'm going to be having a running back video coming up a little bit later after this, wide receiver tight end video after that, and then we will do that final look video on Friday. I hope you guys have a good day. I'll see you guys later. Bye.